Thousands of people woke up one morning and discovered something terrifying. Their bank accounts were suddenly frozen. Not by the bank. By hackers. No warning, no explanation, just error messages, locked screens, and balances that couldn't be accessed. Imagine logging in to check your money and seeing nothing but a message saying your account is unavailable. No withdrawals. No transfers. No access to the savings you spent decades building. Within hours, panic started spreading. Phones flooded bank call centers. ATMs stopped working. People who depended on their accounts for groceries, bills, and medication suddenly realized something was very wrong. But here's the part that made this situation truly chilling. The bank itself didn't understand what was happening yet. Somewhere behind the scenes, invisible attackers had found a way into the financial system, and the longer the account stayed locked, the more one frightening question started spreading among customers. If hackers could lock thousands of people out of their own money overnight, could the same thing happen to anyone else tomorrow? At first, it seemed like a simple technical glitch, the kind banks fix in a few minutes. Early that morning, people across different cities opened their banking apps expecting the usual routine, checking balances, confirming pension deposits, paying a bill or two, and instead they were greeted with something strange: error messages, frozen screens, accounts that refused to load. Some tried refreshing the page. Others logged out and logged back in again. A few assumed their internet connection was the problem. But then something unsettling began to happen. The problem didn't disappear, it spread. Customers walked up to ATMs only to see the machines rejecting cards. Others tried to withdraw cash at grocery stores, only to be told their cards were declined, even though they knew money was in the account. Phone lines to the bank began filling up with worried voices asking the same question: why can't I access my money? And inside bank call centers, employees were hearing something even more disturbing: they didn't have answers. Within hours, the complaints multiplied. Hundreds turned into thousands. Thousands turned into tens of thousands. Suddenly it wasn't just a few customers experiencing a glitch. It was entire banking systems slowing down, freezing, and locking people out. Imagine the fear spreading through living rooms and kitchen tables as people realized they couldn't pay bills scheduled for that day, couldn't withdraw money for groceries, couldn't even confirm whether their life savings were still safe. And while customers were panicking outside, inside the bank something even more alarming was unfolding. Cybersecurity teams were starting to realize this might not be a technical problem at all. Something else was happening behind the screens, something deliberate, something coordinated. And the terrifying realization slowly began to spread through the financial world. This might not be a glitch. It might be an attack. As cybersecurity teams dug deeper into the chaos, a chilling possibility began to emerge. This wasn't an accident, and it wasn't a simple outage. Hidden deep inside the bank's network, investigators started finding traces of something far more sinister: malicious code quietly moving through the system, almost like a digital intruder walking from room to room inside a locked building. The attack showed similarities to tactics used in major financial cybercrimes such as the Carbonac banking malware operation, where hackers didn't smash their way into banks, they slipped in quietly and stayed hidden for months. And that's the part that makes this story so unsettling. These attackers didn't need to break into the vault, they learned how the bank worked from the inside. Experts believe the first step often begins with something incredibly ordinary. A simple email, a message that looks like it came from a coworker or trusted service, opened by an employee who had no idea they were opening the door to criminals. From that moment, the hackers could slowly explore the system, watching how transactions moved, learning how accounts were managed, and waiting patiently for the perfect moment to strike. And when that moment finally came, the attack moved fast, faster than anyone expected. Systems began locking, accounts stopped responding, and security protocols designed to protect money suddenly turned into the very thing trapping customers outside their own accounts. The frightening truth is that many of the people affected never clicked a suspicious link, never downloaded anything strange, never made a mistake at all, yet they were still caught in the middle of a cyber attack unfolding silently behind the scenes. And the question investigators now faced was deeply unsettling. If hackers could quietly infiltrate one banking system like this, how many others might already be inside, simply waiting for their moment? While investigators were still trying to understand what was happening behind the scenes, the real impact was already unfolding in the lives of ordinary people. Across towns and cities, customers who had trusted their banks for decades suddenly found themselves trapped in a situation they never imagined possible. Imagine standing at a pharmacy counter with a prescription in your hand, swiping your card, and hearing the cashier say the payment has been declined, even though you know the money is there. Imagine sitting at home trying to pay an important bill, refreshing the banking page over and over again, hoping the system will come back online, but it never does. For many people, especially those who depend on automatic payments and regular deposits, the fear grew quickly. What if the money wasn't just locked? What if it was gone? Some customers rushed to their local bank branches only to find long lines of worried people asking the same questions. Others spent hours on hold, listening to recorded messages while the uncertainty grew heavier with every passing minute. And the deeper problem was this: the banks themselves were struggling to explain what was happening. When financial systems are attacked, security protocols often freeze accounts and transactions to prevent further damage, but to the customer, it feels exactly the same as losing control of everything they own. Suddenly, people who had carefully planned their finances for years were facing a terrifying thought: what happens if the system you trust with your life savings suddenly stops working? And as the panic spread from one account holder to another, the scale of the crisis became impossible to ignore. This wasn't just a few unlucky customers experiencing technical trouble. This was a growing wave of financial paralysis, leaving thousands of people staring at frozen screens and unanswered questions, wondering when, or if, they would regain access to their own money. As the panic outside the banks continued to grow, a quiet but intense race had already begun behind closed doors. Cybersecurity teams, financial regulators, and digital forensics experts were suddenly working around the clock, trying to answer one terrifying question: how did someone manage to slip inside one of the most secure systems in the world? Banks spend billions every year building digital walls. Layers of encryption, monitoring systems, and fraud detection tools designed to stop criminals before they even get close. Yet somehow, those defenses had been bypassed. Investigators began combing through system logs, tracing tiny digital footprints left behind by the attackers, and what they discovered made the situation even more disturbing. This wasn't a reckless smash-and-grab attack. It was patient, calculated, and frighteningly precise. In many ways it resembled the methods used during the infamous Bangladesh bank heist, where hackers quietly studied banking systems before manipulating transactions and locking systems down. The deeper investigators looked, the clearer the picture became: the attackers hadn't rushed. They had studied how the bank operated, how accounts were accessed, how alerts were triggered, how security teams responded to unusual activity. In other words, they had been watching long before the chaos began. And then came the twist that unsettled experts the most: evidence suggested the attackers might not have been outside the system the whole time. Some clues hinted that access may have started through a trusted pathway, possibly a compromised employee account, a third-party service provider, or a piece of software the bank relied on every day. That realization changed everything. Because if criminals could enter through a trusted door instead of breaking a window, it meant the attack wasn't just about one bank's weakness, it revealed a vulnerability that could exist across the entire financial system. And as investigators pieced together the timeline of the breach, another chilling truth started to emerge. By the time customers noticed they were locked out of their accounts, the hackers had already been inside the system far longer than anyone wanted to believe. Even after the immediate chaos subsided and banks gradually restored access to accounts, the fear lingered like a shadow that refused to leave. For the people who had been locked out, the seniors who relied on automatic pension deposits, retirees who needed access to their savings for everyday living, and families trying to pay urgent bills, the experience was a wake-up call that financial security can vanish in an instant. Investigators revealed key lessons. Strong, unique passwords are no longer enough. Multi-factor authentication can slow attackers but isn't foolproof, and even the most cautious customers can become collateral damage if hackers infiltrate the systems they trust. The banks themselves revamped protocols, added layers of monitoring, and promised better safeguards, but the unsettling truth remained: the same vulnerabilities exist today, waiting for the next clever attacker to exploit them. And while the headlines eventually faded, the anxiety never fully disappeared, leaving millions of account holders quietly asking themselves the same question: could it happen again tomorrow? For seniors, the stakes are even higher. Decades of savings, fixed incomes, and financial independence hang in the balance, and every suspicious email, every system glitch, and every unexpected account freeze becomes a moment of panic. The lesson is clear. In a world where cybercriminals can strike faster and smarter than anyone expects, no one is truly safe, and the systems we trust the most can sometimes betray us when we need them the most.